Right now, on Friday, July 18th, 2026, the United States is living two opposite disasters at the same moment, and I need you to understand why. In the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and across much of the Northeast, well over 100 million people are trapped under dangerous, record-challenging heat, with heat index values climbing toward 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and more than 125 million Americans under some kind of heat alert. At the very same time, 1,000 miles to the south, the Texas Hill Country is underwater again, with parts of the Ohio and Tennessee valleys watching their own rivers and creeks rise. One half of the country is baking, the other half is drowning. And the question I keep hearing, the one you are probably asking, is simple. How can both of these be happening at once? Here's the answer I want you to carry out of this video. These are not two separate stories. They are two symptoms of the same illness. One weather pattern, one bend in a single river of air far above your head, is producing the heat and the floods together. They are not a coincidence sitting side by side on a map. They are cause and consequence, two faces of one stuck atmosphere. And once you can see the shape of that pattern, the split screen on your television stops looking like chaos and starts looking like physics. So today, I'm going to walk you through it, slowly and plainly. I will show you what the jet stream is doing and why it has gotten stuck. I will explain why the middle of a ridge means brutal heat, while its edges mean storms and flooding, the pattern forecasters sometimes call a ring of fire. Then I will show you the deeper amplifier underneath both, the reason a warmer atmosphere makes the heat hotter and the downpours heavier at the same time. I will be honest about what the science can and cannot say, because you deserve caution, not certainty dressed up as fact. And at the end, I will make all of it practical, whether you are the one sweating tonight or the one watching the river. I would rather give you understanding than false drama. Everything that follows is grounded in current guidance from the National Weather Service, the Weather Prediction Center, and the broad agreement of atmospheric scientists. Your local forecast will always be more precise than any national picture, so use this to understand the machine, then use your own forecast to make your decisions. Let me start with the river of air. High above your head, near the altitude where jetliners cruise, there is a fast, narrow current of wind that circles the whole northern hemisphere from west to east. We call it the jet stream. It exists because of a temperature contrast. To its north sits colder air toward the pole. To its south sits warmer air toward the tropics. Where those two air masses meet, the difference in temperature drives a powerful wind, and that wind is the jet stream. Think of it as the boundary fence between the cold half of the atmosphere and the warm half. It is not a straight fence. It bends and buckles into great waves, dipping south in some places and bulging north in others as it wraps around the planet. Those waves are the whole story. Where the jet stream bulges north, it carries warm air up with it and leaves high pressure behind. We call that northward bulge a ridge. Where it plunges south, it drags cold air down and leaves low pressure in the dip. We call that southward plunge a trough. Ridges bring warmth and sinking, settled air. Troughs bring cool air and unsettled, stormy weather. Under normal summer conditions, these ridges and troughs march along from west to east at a steady pace. So any one place gets a few warm days, then a few cooler ones, then a passing storm, then sun again. The weather moves because the waves move, but sometimes the waves stop moving. Sometimes the jet stream buckles into a huge, exaggerated shape and then just locks in place, like a garden hose that is kinked and will not straighten out. Meteorologists call this a blocking pattern. When the atmosphere blocks, the ridge does not slide east the way it should. It parks. And whatever weather that part of the wave produces, it produces for days, sometimes for a week or more, over the same unlucky ground. That is exactly what has happened this July. The jet stream has gone stuck, and that single fact, one kinked hose refusing to straighten, is the parent of both the heat and the floods you are seeing. Now let me take you inside the ridge, into the heat. A strong ridge is a dome of high pressure sitting in the middle and upper atmosphere. Underneath it, the air is sinking. As that air sinks toward the ground, the growing weight of the atmosphere above squeezes it, and squeezed air warms. This is the same physics that makes a bicycle pump grow hot as you compress the air inside it. On the scale of a continent, this compression is enormous and gentle and relentless. Air descends across several states at once, warming the whole way down. That sinking motion also flattens clouds and suppresses rain, so more sunlight reaches the ground, and the sunlit ground heats the air still further. Warm, sinking air, clear skies, and strong sun stack their effects on top of one another. The result is what people have started calling a heat dome. It is not a lid of glass floating over your state. It is a deep, stubborn mound of high pressure that bakes everything beneath it, and because the pattern is blocked, refuses to leave. There is something unusual about this particular heat dome, and it matters for the rest of the story. Normally, in a summer like this, you would expect the strongest ridge to sit over Texas and the southern plains, with the cooler upper-level dips wandering across the Great Lakes and the Midwest. This year, the geography has flipped. The dome has anchored far to the north, over the northern tier of states, which is why places built for brutal winters, the Dakotas and Minnesota and the upper Midwest, are the ones facing extreme heat, and why the dangerous warmth has spread east into the northeast. When a heat dome sets up that far north, it changes where everything else has to go. And that is the hinge on which the flooding turns, because here is the part most people miss. A ridge does not just create heat in its center. It actively creates storms around its edge. Think again about that dome of sinking, high-pressure air the atmosphere has to balance. All the air descending in the middle of the ridge has to be compensated somewhere, and the storms that would normally roll across the middle of the country cannot punch through the heart of the dome. So they get shoved to the outside, to the rim, where they ride along the edge of the high pressure like cars circling the outside of a roundabout. Along that rim, several things come together at once. The air is hot and loaded with humidity. The jet stream and its disturbances skirt the northern and western flank of the ridge, and the boundary between the baking air inside the dome and the cooler air outside, it becomes a natural firing line for thunderstorms. Forecasters call this pattern the ring of fire, because storms erupt in a great arc around the periphery of the heat, night after night, in roughly the same places. That phrase is not about actual fire. It is about the ring of severe thunderstorms that wraps the outer edge of a heat dome. And those storms are not the brief, cooling afternoon showers you might hope for. Because the pattern is blocked and the ridge is not moving, the storms keep forming over the same ground and tracking along the same path, one after another, like train cars crossing the same point on a track. Meteorologists call that training. One storm is a downpour. Storm after storm, riding the same rim of the dome over the same river valley for night after night, is a flash flood factory. Now put the two halves together, and the split screen finally makes sense. The blocked ridge parks over the northern part of the country and bakes it. That same blocked ridge shoves the storms out to its edges and holds them there. Under the center, the sun cooks, and the rivers run dry. Around the rim, the rain falls in the same places, and the rivers explode. The heat and the flood are not fighting each other for the map. They are partners. The dome that makes one is the very thing that positions the other. This is why the two extremes tend to intensify together rather than cancel out. A stronger, more sharply defined ridge does not just mean hotter air in the middle. It means a steeper, more energetic boundary around the outside, and a more focused firing line for storms along that boundary. The hotter the dome runs, the more moisture and instability pile up along its rim, and the harder those edge storms can rain. So when you hear that this heat wave is unusually strong, understand that the same words describe the flooding threat wrapped around it. They rise and fall together because they are drawing on the same reservoir of heat and the same locked-in shape of the jet stream. Break the block, and both ease at once. Deepen it, and both sharpen. There is one more wrinkle this July that makes the Texas flooding so severe, and it fits the same logic. When the heat dome jumped north, it trapped a pocket of cooler, unsettled air behind it, a slow upper-level low that got cut off and stranded to the south. Stalled over the southern plains, that stubborn pocket has done exactly what a trough does. It has lifted the deep tropical moisture streaming up from the Gulf and wrung it out, again and again, over the hill country in central Texas. Rainfall rates have reached 3 to 4 inches an hour in the dark, over ground made of thin soil and hard rock that cannot soak it up. That is why the same landscape that meteorologists have long nicknamed Flash Flood Alley is underwater while the north bakes. The dome to the north and the trapped low to the south are two parts of one locked-up pattern. So that is the machine. A kinked jet stream, a parked ridge, heat in its belly and storms on its rim, and a stranded pocket of cold air completing the picture to the south. Everything you're watching this week comes from that one arrangement. But there is a deeper layer underneath, and I do not want to leave it out because it is the reason both of these extremes are landing harder than they used to. The deeper layer is simple, and it is one of the most solid pieces of physics in all of atmospheric science. Warmer air can hold more water vapor. For roughly every 1 degree Celsius that the atmosphere warms, it can hold about 7% more moisture. That relationship has a name, the Clausius-Clapeyron relation, but you do not need the name. You only need the picture. A warmer atmosphere is a bigger sponge. It can soak up more water from the oceans and the land, and when a storm finally squeezes that sponge, more water comes out. Now watch how that single fact feeds both sides of this week's disaster. On the flooding side, it is direct. The air over the Gulf and over Texas is warmer than it used to be, so it carries more water vapor as fuel. When the ring of fire storms fire along the rim of the dome, or when that stranded low wrings out the tropical moisture, they are working with a fuller sponge, than the same storm would have found decades ago. The very heaviest, most violent downpours, the exact kind that produce flash floods, have been growing more intense across much of the country. The storm pattern is old. This land flooded long before any of us were born. What has changed is that the same pattern, on a warmer baseline, can drop even more rain in the same amount of time. On the heat side, the amplifier works too, in two ways. The obvious one is that a warmer starting point means the same ridge has more heat available to concentrate, so records that once required a perfect pattern become easier to reach. The subtler one runs right back through that moisture. More water vapor in the air means more humidity, and humidity is what makes heat deadly. It is what keeps your sweat from evaporating and cooling you. And it is what keeps the night from cooling off, because humid air holds the day's warmth long after sunset. A wetter atmosphere and a hotter atmosphere are the same atmosphere. The extra moisture that loads the dice for floods is also part of what makes the heat harder for a human body to survive. There is one more piece of this worth pausing on, because it is where the heat quietly does its worst work. The extra moisture does not only fuel the storms, it also holds the day's warmth into the night, so the temperature never falls far after dark. And the overnight low is the number that decides whether a heat wave is merely uncomfortable or genuinely dangerous. Your body needs the cool of night to recover from the heat of the day. When the humidity keeps the night in the upper 70s or higher, that recovery never comes, and the strain builds across day after day. So the same warming that makes the downpours heavier is also erasing the nighttime relief that used to keep the heat survivable. Both extremes are being fed from the same table. That is the honest core of it. A warmer world does not simply trade heat for cold or wet for dry. It raises the ceiling on more than one kind of extreme at the same time, which is exactly why you can watch flooding and baking share a single week and a single map. Now I need to be careful and fair with you, because this is where a lot of loud voices go wrong in both directions. One error is to look at this stuck pattern and declare that the weather is permanently broken, that the atmosphere has entered some new locked state and will never move again. That is not true. Ridges break. Blocks let go. The jet stream that kinked this week will straighten, and in fact, the pattern responsible for the worst of the Texas flooding is already expected to loosen its grip. Cooler air will eventually spill into the north, and the storms will shift. Weather still moves. Anyone selling you a permanent superdome is selling fear, not forecasting. The opposite error is to shrug and say this is just summer, that heat and thunderstorms in July are as old as July itself, and that nothing about it is worth a second thought. That is not true either. Yes, this land has always had heat waves and flash floods, but the loading has changed. Think of a pair of dice. Warming has not replaced the dice with something magical. It has weighted them, so the extreme rolls come up more often and land a little harder when they do. No single flood and no single hot afternoon can be pinned entirely on that weighting, and honest scientists will not try. What we can say, with real confidence, is that the odds have shifted toward exactly the kind of week you are living through right now. Loaded dice, not a certainty. That distinction is not a weakness in the science. It is the science being honest. So hold both truths at once. This specific pattern is temporary and will pass. The tilt that made it more intense is not going anywhere on its own. You can believe the forecast that says relief is coming, and still take seriously the trend that says weeks like this are becoming more common. Now let me make all of this useful, because understanding the machine only matters if it changes what you do tonight. And what you should do depends on which side of the pattern you're standing on. If you are under the heat in the northern plains, the upper Midwest, or the Northeast, start with a number most people ignore. Do not just look at the afternoon high, look at the overnight low. When a humid night refuses to drop out of the upper 70s, your body never gets its recovery window, and cumulative heat over several days is what actually fills emergency rooms. Check your local heat risk forecast rather than a viral national map. If you have air conditioning, close the blinds on the sunny side of your home during the day, and know where you would go if your unit failed. If you do not have reliable cooling, find your air-conditioned refuge now, a library, a mall, a community cooling center, and make sure you know how to get there, because a cooling center is useless if you cannot reach it. Drink water before you feel thirsty. Learn the warning signs, because heavy sweating, dizziness, nausea, and a pounding headache can mean heat exhaustion, while confusion, slurred speech, fainting, or a very high body temperature can mean heat stroke, which is an emergency. If you see those signs, call 911 and start cooling the person immediately with water and moving air while help is coming. And never, under any circumstances, leave a child, an older adult, or an animal in a parked car, even for a few minutes, even in the shade. If you are under the storms, in the hill country, in central Texas, in the Ohio or Tennessee valleys, or anywhere the rim of this dome is dropping rain, the rules are different but just as clear. Understand that a flash flood is about the rate of rain and the shape of the land, not the weekly total, and that the danger often arrives at night and from rain that fell miles away, upstream, under a sky you cannot see. So make sure a warning can actually reach you. Turn on the wireless emergency alerts on your phone, the ones that sound even when the ringer is off. And if you sleep near a creek or a river, get a weather radio that can wake you in the dark, because 3 a.m. is exactly when these rivers rise, and exactly when your phone may be silent across the room. If a flash flood warning comes while you are in a low-lying spot, do not wait to see the water. Move to higher ground before it arrives. And the single rule that would prevent the largest share of these deaths is this: never drive into water on a road. Not a little. Not if the car ahead of you made it. 6 inches of moving water can take your footing, 1 foot can float your car, and you cannot see whether the road beneath the water still exists. Turn around, do not drown. If you are ever caught by rising water, get out of its path and get up onto high ground or an upper floor, because the goal is always to climb out of the channel the water is using. And on both sides of this pattern, in the heat and in the flood alike, there is one action that matters more than any forecast. Check on the people who cannot check on themselves, the older neighbor who sleeps through alerts, the person living alone in an apartment that has become an oven, the family in a low-lying home who does not want to overreact. A phone call at the right moment, telling someone to cool down now or to move to higher ground now instead of in an hour, has saved more lives than any radar image ever will. If you are the one who is awake and paying attention, you are the last line of defense for someone who is not. Let me bring this all the way back to where we started, because it is the thread that ties the two disasters together into one. The headline this week is the split screen, the shocking image of a country baking and drowning at the same time. But the real story was never the contradiction. There is no contradiction. It is one blocked jet stream, one parked ridge, heat in its center and storms on its edge, made more intense by an atmosphere that now holds more heat and more water than the one our records were built on. The number that makes the news, the temperature or the rainfall total or the river crest, is only the trigger. What decides whether a weather event becomes a human disaster is what happens on the ground, whether the warning reached a sleeping person, whether the cooling center was open and someone knew how to get there, whether a driver turned around, whether a neighbor made the call. The atmosphere decides how hot the air gets and how hard the rain falls. Human choices decide how many people are standing in harm's way when it arrives. A record temperature is meteorology. A record river crest is meteorology. The gap between a hard week and a deadly one is preparation. That gap is the one thing in this entire story that you actually control. And this week, of all weeks, that is where I want your attention. So watch the pattern, not the panic. The dome will drift, the block will break, and the rivers will fall. When that happens, I will tell you what changed and why. Until then, if you are in the heat, guard your nights and check the room where you sleep. If you're in the water's country, guard the dark hours, respect every flooded road, and go up before you are sure you need to. Thank you for trusting me with your weather. To everyone sweating tonight and everyone watching the river tonight, look after the number on the thermometer, look after the level of the creek, and above all, look after one another. I will keep following the jet stream, the heat, and the floods, and I will be back the moment there is something new that you need to know.